Hello, everyone. My name is Jared Altick, and I'm a chaplain with the police department. The Hey Chaplain podcast brings you stories and wisdom about life in law enforcement, giving support and encouragement to those who wear the badge. One of the negatives about working in law enforcement is being forced to work holidays. Somebody has to be at work to respond to emergencies and keep the community safe. And this means that just about every cop has missed important family time, including and especially holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas. As I've been recording my interviews with police officers, I've asked them about this difficult time, and it turns out, as always, to be a wild mix of different experiences and emotions, both good and bad. In this episode, we talk about interesting experiences during the holidays. I want you to see in these firsthand accounts that police officers are human too. They miss their families, but they also laugh about the strange and wild things they see. Please take note that they really don't want to ruin your special day with the family. And just like anybody else, they go to work and try to encourage each other, doing silly little things to lighten the mood. And sometimes they have the opportunity to shine a little ray of hope and mercy into otherwise terrible circumstances.
I was a patrolman at the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department in the early 2000s.
I was a patrol officer for a large department in the D.C. area in the early 2000s.
I was a patrol officer at Overland Park Police Department in the late 1990s.
I was a special agent with U.S. Army CID and was deployed to Iraq in 2005.
I was a patrolman. I was with Kansas City, Kansas from the early 90s to the early 2000s.
I was a sergeant and then a captain in the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department in the 2010s and 2020s.
Yeah, I was a patrol officer for Kansas City, Kansas Police Department from 1967 up until about 74.
I was a patrol officer at Overland Park Police Department in the early 2000s.
All right, tell me a notable Christmas or Thanksgiving story when you were on duty during the holiday.
That's been a long time ago. I can't really think of anything right offhand that stands out in my mind.
Okay.
On that.
Okay. Tell me what you were telling me a minute ago about your philosophy about working holidays before you had kids.
When I first went on, it was just the wife and I. We had no children. And a lot of the guys I worked with had young children and stuff at home. So for the first several years, I volunteered to work Thanksgiving and Christmas especially so that they could be home with their children. And then after my wife had some children and we got a little older and my kids started to grow a little bit, well, then I started taking some of the holidays off. But I figured it was more important for the officers with young children to be home with their families instead of working.
Yeah. Have you ever arrested Santa Claus or
no? I wouldn't do that. He gets a free pass.
Right.
No, I've had traumatic things that I've witnessed on Christmas, and I've worked a lot of Christmases. Right. I've done, a lot of being there with the guys and the gals on the shift, trying to do things to buck up morale and those kinds of things. Like we're all working this together. Let's go out and, bring a meal in and all eat together and break bread as a police family kind of thing. I do a lot of that, but a lot of bad weather on Christmas. But no, nothing crazy that I can really, it comes right to mind. Like, arresting Santa Claus or, cut some people breaks, on Christmas, not trying to put them in jail over the holidays like that, if you can help it, but.
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
So it was early in the shift. I worked evenings, and because it was holiday, I distinctly remember it wasn't like my regular crew because we worked fixed shifts, squads. You were always with the same people, same partners every day. But my supervisor was out, and so were some of my guys that probably took off to be with their families. And I remember the sergeant we had was from the opposite shift. Super nice guy, really big, buff, black sergeant. So had this great sergeant working that shift. And I remember at least one other guy, well, I guess you're never an ex-Marine, but
those guys are Marines for life. That's right.
Yeah. Fit, jacked Marine who eventually made SWAT and was a good Christian and a family man, super mature. I can't remember the call, but we worked it was the high crime district for this agency. And I don't know what the call was for, but I remember the sergeant gathering us, and I remember he had the shotgun, and we were doing, a stealth tactical approach. So whatever it was, we were given some information that this was going to be some kind of potentially armed call that we're dealing with. And we end up in the apartment of whatever this call was that I can't remember. But the thing was, we're in a black neighborhood, a high crime black neighborhood. And there was some known troublemakers in this apartment partying. But there was also a white guy that looked like a biker and long hair covered in white supremacist tattoos.
Oh, wow.
And we're like, what the heck? And then there was also a black transvestite that was known to us, and if you worked that neighborhood, because there was a period of time when it was not known to the neighborhood that this individual was engaging in physical acts with other people that were not aware of the totality of the original sexual orientation.
Right.
So we knew this person as someone who had gotten beaten up and stuff like that. So we end up on this beautiful holiday in an apartment with black gang members hanging out with a dude that's covered in swastikas and other white supremacy tattoos that you're like, how do you even get in or out of this neighborhood without somebody, getting into some beef with him?
Right.
And then we have this black transvestite that these same people or their friends have beaten up because of the stuff they had pulled in the neighborhood. And I don't remember who we took to jail and for what, but I remember that Marine, cracking some jokes about breaking bread on the holidays and the tragedy of life of what brings people together to where they are not focused on their differences. But in this case, it was drugs and alcohol, so.
Well, they had that one thing in common. And so they spent the holiday together. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was funny and interesting at the time, not in a memorable way, just because it's like, this is what cops see that doesn't fit everyday civilian life.
Oh, yeah. 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 It doesn't make any sense except just human beings, reaching out to each other and wanting to, spend Thanksgiving together. That's fascinating. Yeah. Have you ever arrested Santa Claus or anything like that?
No, I haven't arrested Santa. That would be a memory I would never forget. But I did have an instance on Christmas where, I had to come in. I was working. This has probably been 20 years ago, maybe even more, to be honest with you. But we were working on a Christmas day. We were working day shift. And, I said, I'm going to go out and write a ticket on Christmas, So I know people out there are like, wow, this guy's a real bah humbug kind of guy,
What a jerk.
What a jerk. Wow. Who goes out on Christmas to write a ticket? But anyway, I was like, police work's full of firsts. You get your first dead body, you get your first arrest. And I was like, maybe I should have the experience of writing a ticket on Christmas Day. So anyway, I got into service and I went out to US 69 highway. I was sitting in the center median, and it was about, it was probably near 119th Street. And I'm sitting there, and I'm running, I think I was running just regular radar, and here comes this car, and it's trucking right along. And so anyway, here we go. We get a speeder. I can't remember. I think it was going pretty fast because I usually wouldn't write a speeding ticket for anybody that wouldn't go in 13 or 14 miles an hour speed limit on the highway. So anyway, I pulled out and I stopped this car and got up to the door. And of course, it's a family. they're headed to probably Grandpa's house, Grandma's house for Christmas. And, sir, can I get your driver's license, proof of insurance? Yes, sir. And told him while I had stopped him, and he's like, yeah, we're just trying to get to where we're going. And I was like, okay, all right, I'll be right back with you. And so I sit back there and I write the ticket out. Hand wrote the tickets back then, so I was handwriting this ticket, and I get done and I go up and I serve it. The guy doesn't give me any, doesn't hassle me, doesn't tell me, well, geez, really, or
no guilt trip.
No guilt trip. Didn't
right.
he just as like, so I explained the citation to him and give it to him, and of course I end with my usual, drive safely, and off he goes. And man, I'll tell you what, I got back in my car and I sat there for a minute, and it wasn't as cool of a feeling as I thought it would be. Yeah. It was just one of those things where it's like, that's regrettable, you know? And, at the time we didn't have the ability to go to the court and say, hey, I'd like to dismiss this ticket. And of course, not showing up for court wasn't an option, because that'd get me a letter of reprimand or a suspension day or something without pay. So I just was like, there was just no good solution to fix
right
what I felt like I had really, it was legitimate. It was, it wasn't like I had made up some kind of charge or trumped up something, but it just felt awful about it. And so at that very moment, I decided that I would never again write a ticket, not only on a Christmas day, but on a Sunday.
Okay.
And so, and I never did again in my career, 20,
it was
40 years
never
later.
had something that was so egregious you were forced
Never
to.
had something egregious. Never put myself in a position where, it wasn't a situation where it's like, I'm really going to mess up somebody's day. It was never that. That wasn't the intention. It's just like, if I'm going to have to work,
right,
I'm going to work, and I might as well just try to, go out there and see. And of course, it worked out to where I did get a speaker. But anyway, it's one of those stories that I've kept to myself.
Sure.
Because looking back on it now, it's like, it's really embarrassing to tell somebody that you went out purposefully to write a ticket on Christmas, on a Christmas holiday, when you think that really, you should be trying to build up and edify people, and not really trying to tear people down. But anyway,
sure.
That's my memorable Christmas story, and it's one that I haven't told very often because, to be quite honest with you, it's one of those where somebody go, wow, you're a real bummer. You're a real bah humbug.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've missed more holidays than I can remember. The actual holiday for working shift work, obviously, but in my deployments, I've been gone quite a bit during the holidays. So, but I mean, specifically, I know when I was deployed to Iraq in 2005, I remember Thanksgiving. I was out at a remote outpost on an investigation where a soldier had been killed in a rollover accident, and so the Thanksgiving there at that outpost was a little bit memorable.
Yeah,
obviously not quite as not memorable in necessarily a good way, but that Christmas, I was sitting with my bags along with the rest of my detachment at the Baghdad International Airport, and we were coming home on Christmas, and that was Christmas Day. So while it was a little sad to not be home on Christmas, it was a happy time because we were coming home after a year on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
So
Excellent. That's good.
Those were the most memorable, being gone because of where I was, and then again at Christmas, it was a happy time because we were finishing up that year.
You've never had to arrest a Santa Claus? Anything like that?
No Santa Claus, but I've certainly been to a lot of people's Christmas and Thanksgiving dinners when things didn't go quite as well as they'd hoped. Certainly, you joke about having the family together for Thanksgiving or Christmas, and unfortunately, I've had to be involved. I've been invited to many Christmas and Thanksgiving dinners for folks that I didn't know at the time. Yeah. But I can't remember really ever taking anyone to jail specifically from home on Christmas. There's been a few people that were out driving after celebrating too much, and I've given them rides to jail on Christmas Day. Christmas night. I worked nights when I was a local police officer for the most part. So more than one occasion, someone's holiday has ended up in the jail, and I've got to deliver them there.
That's good. Notable Christmas or Thanksgiving on duty?
Let's see, it would be a Christmas Eve. Got called to, well, I came in as a domestic, and it was more just like a family brawl. And it was in an apartment, so it was packed. And we get there, and there's like 3 or 4 people that are still kind of really in each other's faces and pushing and shoving. And one guy finally comes in and just turns up the volume really loud, so he's going. So he gets cuffed up. But while we're struggling with him, Grandma's sitting on the couch, and she's just doing this, looking back and forth, just trying to watch the TV. And the volume turns up so loud we can't even hardly hear each other speaking. She just wanted to watch her show. It's like all this stuff going on in front of her was completely normal. And so
you may have just found the root cause of some of the dysfunction.
Yeah. And then so we're outside, and Sergeant shows up, and I brought this KU Santa hat with. And I put it on. And this guy was really intoxicated, and I was kind of provoking him a little bit. And you know, he's calling us every name in the book but a policeman. And like, you just got your butt kicked by Santa Claus. What are you crying about? And the sergeant's like, you did not have that on in the house. And he was getting all sorts of spun up. And I let him play with it for a little while because I'm like, I think he's going to try to write me up. I'm like, Sarge, I didn't have it on.
Right. There's certain things you do just to keep your sanity.
Yeah.
Give me a notable Christmas, Thanksgiving type story on duty.
Yeah, that's a pretty funny one. So my family, I have an aunt that lives in Overland Park, and I told them I had to work. They knew I was young, and I wasn't a rookie, but they knew I was young and going to have to do that, and law enforcement family. So they said, oh, sure, we'll have family Christmas at my aunt's house because she's a resident of Overland Park. And so I said, cool. Well, I had good supervisors that just said, answer the radio. That's all I want you to do is answer the radio. I don't really care what you do. You know, we're not writing tickets today, so you don't need to be out necessarily driving around. So, great. So I'm sitting at my aunt's house watching television. We're having dinner, and the double tone come out, which means priority 1 call, and call my number. I'm not that far away, and it's a family disturbance. So, okay, that's cool. Give me something to do. And so I get up from dinner, leave, go to this family disturbance. I can't remember why my backup took so long to get there, but there was a medic there that I trusted. He was a tactical medic and had worked with him. And not to mention, he had like 24-inch arms. You know, he was huge. I was like, I'll go in here with him and go in there. And the family was fighting with this guy, and I made the decision he was going to be arrested. And he did not want to be arrested, and the fight was on. And here I am on Christmas Day. It's like a movie. Christmas Day, family disturbance, and I'm in a fight in the kitchen. And it was just like a movie. Well, the medic that I talked about, he jumps in the fight with me because I wasn't losing the fight, but I needed a little bit of help to get this guy under control. And he pretzeled him up, and I got him pretzeled up, and I ended up arresting him and had him in custody before my backup ever got there. Escort him out to the car, take him down, and escort him out to the car. And I told my backup, since you didn't get to do all that, you get to go book him. And they were like, okay, I'm bored. I'll do it. And so handed him off to them, got in the car, drove back to dinner, sat back down, and finished my plated dinner.
Some of the calls that you made on Christmas, you know, it was like, why are you fighting? Well, they gave me underwear again. It's like, really? You know, people are actually in dire trouble and you're mad about underwear. I mean, I get it. I had an aunt that gave me, I knew what my aunt was going to give me every year. For birthday, she bought us a 12-pack of socks. I got 6 for Thanksgiving, or 6 for my birthday and 6 for Christmas, okay? Knew what I was going to get from her, so I get it. Maybe it gets a little old, but come on. This is not a police matter. But tragically, I think the thing that really got me in was actually 2 Christmases about 3 years apart. There were shootings very close to 11:30, 12 o'clock on 11:30 on a Christmas night. They went to the hospital. I mean, they were technically, the term they use is DRT, which is dead right there. But they did work on them. And I was looking at the clock, and I was looking at the doctor, the head doctor who's in charge of the residents. I said, hey, I don't want you to do anything unethical. I don't want you to break any, laws here. But, it's 11:45 at night on Christmas night. You have some residents who might need some extra training. Do you think you could work on them just a little bit longer? It's a small thing we can do for the family if we make the death date, 12/26 and rather 12/25. And the guy kind of cocked his head at me and he looks at me and he says, we can do that. And the weird thing is I had the opportunity to do that twice in about a 3-year span. And that's one thing that's always stuck out for me. And I don't know if it did the families any good. I mean, it's still around Christmas time. It's still the holidays, but maybe it's just a minor thing. And sometimes it's just the minor things like that you try to do for people that you hope you made a difference. That you hope that you really give them just a slight bit of peace in the situation.
Thank you to the officers who were willing to sit down and share these oral histories. If you like this type of episode, please listen to bonus episode 2, titled My Worst Police Car, First-Hand Accounts, released on September 27th, 2021. And if you'd like to participate, please contact me through the Hey Chaplain Facebook page. The views expressed here are the personal views of the host and our guests and do not necessarily represent the views of any law enforcement agency or its components. If you liked what you heard here, please share this episode with a cop or someone who loves a cop. Thank you for listening today. And as always, pray for peace in our city.